Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. She did not hear me come in, but he did. Dean Mercer pushed the door open with one slow, deliberate hand. The hinges did not creak. The wood barely shifted. 9 months of desert patrols taught him how to move like a shadow, and today, that instinct served him well. He was supposed to be home tomorrow. His boots were still dusty. His bag still slung over one shoulder. But what stopped him cold was not the fatigue. It was the sound. Laughter. A voice that was not his wife's. A low, male laugh. Confident. Comfortable. Too comfortable. Dean stepped down the hall like he had cleared buildings in Baghdad. No noise, no breath. The bedroom door was open just an inch. Enough to see her. Enough to see him. Brenna's back arched toward the headboard, covers low. Her laugh was breathy, careless. And the man? He saw Dean, locked eyes with him, and smirked. It was not a panicked look. It was not fear. It was a smile full of arrogance, like he had already won. Like Dean was just some ghost from a past life. Dean did not flinch. He did not speak. He did not drop his bag. He simply turned around and walked back out the front door. The garage was dark. Not pitch black, just dim enough for a man to sit and think. Dean sat on the old tool bench, elbows on knees, staring at a wall that had seen more blood and oil than paint. The side door creaked open. Kellen stepped in, quiet, awkward. "Dad." His voice was barely there. Dean did not look at him. "How long?" Kellen exhaled hard. "Since January, I think. Maybe longer. I saw the guy once, when you were deployed. I did not know what to do. I didn't want to break you before you came home." Dean finally turned his head. His son, 17, calm on the outside but fighting not to shake, looked like he had been carrying the weight of war, too. "I'm not broken," Dean said. Kellen stepped closer. "You should have heard them last month. Joking about the money. About how you would never see it coming." "What money?" "They've been moving it. She has an account. It's not in her name, but it's her." Dean nodded slowly. Everything clicked. The missing payments. The delayed checks. The question she dodged when he called from base. "Did you keep anything?" Dean asked. Kellen's eyes hardened. "Everything." It had been 3 days. Brenna cooked dinner like nothing had happened. Miles was gone by then, like a ghost that only Dean and Kellen remembered. They played along. Dean came to the table, kissed her cheek, said, "Thanks, babe." His voice flat, but not hostile. Kellen asked about school. Brenna smiled like she still had a family. She did not notice the new security system app on Dean's phone, or the black box under the couch, or the signal jammer he had installed in the garage ceiling. Everything she said was being recorded. Every word. Every look. Miles called once. Dean picked up. Said nothing. Just let the line sit open. "Miles? Bren? That you? You good?" Dean hung up. They wanted war? They would get silence first. Silence that watched. Silence that built the case. "You were really quiet lately," Brenna said that night. Dean kissed her forehead. "Just tired." She smiled. And that smile told him one thing: she still thought she was winning. Perfect. Let her believe it. Because the next time Miles looked him in the eyes, he would not be smirking. The house smelled like roasted rosemary chicken and garlic mashed potatoes. Dean sat at the table, hands folded, across from Brenna. She lit a candle. Her laugh came easy, like the last few days had not happened. Like she had not been naked under another man while her husband stood in the hallway. She poured wine. 2 glasses. "Only 2. Feels good to have you home," she said. Dean's lips curved into a practiced smile. "Yeah, feels like I never left." He took the wine with his right hand. His left slid under the table, fingers pressing a button taped beneath the wood. The device clicked on. Recording. "So," Brenna said, "I was thinking, we should go away for a weekend. Just us. Clear our heads." Dean nodded. "That sounds great. You pick the place. I'll take care of the rest." Brenna leaned in. "You have been so distant. I missed you." Her voice almost trembled. Almost. But Dean heard the performance. He had seen real fear, real guilt. This was not that. He watched her fork trace slow circles in the mashed potatoes. "What do you want me to say, Bryn?" he asked softly. "That I trust you?" She hesitated, blinked. "I want to move forward." "Then stop looking over your shoulder." She froze for half a second. Just enough. Dean stood, leaned over, and kissed the top of her head. "I'll clean up. You go rest." She smiled again, but this time it cracked. Dean watched her walk away. Then he turned to the table, took the recorder from under the wood, and slipped it into his pocket. They were going to confess. They just did not know it yet. The next morning, Dean stood outside a small coffee shop 2 towns over. He was not alone. Race Danner stepped out of a matte black Jeep. Ex-military. Numbers guy? Loyal to the core. "You look like hell," Race said. Dean nodded. "Feels like it." They sat across from each other at the far corner table. Dean laid out the printouts, bank statements, property deeds, financial transfers routed through fake LLCs. Race's eyes scanned the documents, sharp and fast. "You were right," he muttered. "That account's buried under 3 shells. One of them ties back to a man named Miles Rayner." Dean said nothing. Race continued. "Your wife set this up 18 months ago. Miles handles the transfers. She keeps it clean by laundering it through a veteran outreach nonprofit." Dean leaned back. Ray shook his head. "This is federal-level fraud. Contract skimming. And because your name is technically on one of these LLCs. If this explodes the wrong way, they will come after you too." Dean's jaw clenched. "So we flip it." Race grinned. "You want to burn them legally? I want to bury them under their own paperwork." Race laughed once. "Goddamn. I miss this version of you." Dean stood. "I will send you everything we find. Keep it off-grid. Do not use my name. Do not leave a trail." Race raised his cup in salute. "Operation Homefront?" Dean gave a thin smile. "Operation Payback." Sunday morning came like nothing had happened. Pancakes. Bacon. Kellen mowed the lawn. Brenna sang along to some playlist like her life was normal. Dean stood in the hallway, staring at the bathroom mirror. Behind him, Brenna was folding towels. "You look better," she said, smiling in the reflection. Sleep helped. He turned to face her. "Yeah, I think I just needed clarity." She smiled wider, kissed his cheek. Dean's phone buzzed in his pocket. One new voicemail. Unknown number. Voice print match. Miles Rayner. Dean walked to the back porch and played the message on speaker. "Hey, babe. Sorry I bailed so fast last time. The old man spooked me. He looks rough, like, actually unstable. You sure he is not catching on? Let me know when the money clears. Love you." Dean saved the message, then deleted it from the phone log. He turned around. Kellen was watching from the hallway. "You got it?" Kellen asked. Dean nodded. "Want me to transcribe it?" "No. I want you to memorize it. And say it out loud to the lawyer when I am not in the room." Kellen grinned. "You trust me that much?" Dean looked him dead in the eye. "No. I trust you more than her." The waiting room smelled like cheap air freshener and nervous lies. Dean sat with his hands in his lap, tapping his thumb in slow rhythm against his knee. Brenna sat across from him, scrolling her phone like this was just another Thursday. The therapist's office was small. Cozy, almost. But nothing felt warm inside it. Dr. Finnick, a woman with sharp eyes and calm hands, ushered them in. "Please, have a seat. Let's begin." Brenna jumped in first, voice soft, smile forced. "I just want to reconnect. Dean has been distant since he got back. Closed off." Dean watched her carefully. "I came back to a different house." "That's normal," Dr. Finnick offered gently. "Reintegration is hard after deployment. Sometimes our expectations clash with the reality we return to." Dean turned slightly. "Is it normal for a husband to come home to find things missing? Passwords changed? Accounts dry?" Brenna blinked. "Just once." But her face did not falter. "I told you, I had to make some quick decisions with the bills. We talked about that." "No," Dean said. "You talked." "I listened." Dr. Finnick leaned forward. "Dean, what would help you feel safe again?" He smiled. "Not cruel, not kind, just precise. Truth." The room fell into silence. Then Brenna chuckled, light, like she was playing it off. What does that mean? Dean shrugged. I guess we will find out. Later, outside the office, Brenna walked ahead to the car. Dean stopped at the corner and turned to look at the door behind them. Inside, under the couch cushion, sat a small USB recorder. Every word, every breath, every dodge. Saved. Race met Dean in a gravel lot behind an old hunting supply store. No cameras. No traffic. Just dirt and silence. You said you had something, Race said, stepping out of the Jeep. Dean handed him a brown envelope. Inside, a notarized copy of a grant proposal. Military construction. Miles Rayner's company listed as the contractor. Dean's name forged as co-signer. Race whistled low. This is serious federal time. Dean nodded. There's more. Property leases. A fake VA housing project? I think Miles has done this before. Who approved it? Someone in the city office. Name came up twice. Darcy Lowell. Race nodded. She plays dirty. Bribed for permits last year. She is in it deep. Dean looked at him. I want to take them all down. Not just for me. For the other vets they screwed. Race looked at the forged document again, then tucked it into his jacket. I will run this through a guy I know at Veteran Affairs. Quietly, Dean stared out at the horizon. I need leverage before I move. Enough to drown them. Race gave a grim smile. Then we will flood the whole system. It started with a burner account on a veteran forum. Dean posted a simple message. Check where your housing funds are really going. Not all heroes sleep under solid roofs. Within hours, 5 replies. Then 10. By the next day, someone uploaded a scanned invoice with Rayner Contracting's name on it. Marked, paid in full for work that had never been done. Dean watched from his desk at home. Kellen leaned over his shoulder, eyes wide. Is this it? He asked. The start? Dean nodded once. This is the drip before the downpour. Brenna passed by in the hallway, laughing on a call. Dean minimized the screen. She did not know she was already part of an investigation. She did not know Dean had mailed copies of Miles' financials to a journalist under a fake name. She did not know about the woman who just messaged Dean privately. My husband trusted that contractor. He died waiting for a ramp that never got built. Dean closed the laptop. It had begun. The paper was thicker than it should have been, watermarked, government-issued, notarized. Dean laid it flat across Race's workbench in the garage. This is the real contract, Dean said. From the base commander's office. The housing project was signed under Miles Rayner. Not me. Not any vet. Race studied it. He faked your name on the draft you found, then sent this official one through using city approval. No oversight. Classic shell play. Dean pointed at the signature line. Look at the date. I was in Afghanistan that week. Race nodded slowly. And there's no way the military contractor board checked this closely. Dean picked up the forged version they had intercepted earlier. This version was meant to be found. The real damage was done with the other one. Race let out a slow breath. This is how they do it. Bleed small, hide big. They take just under the radar and keep moving. Dean's jaw flexed. I want it traced. From Miles to the city office to whoever cashed that first check. Race pulled out his laptop and began typing fast. Give me 2 days. Dean turned toward the door. You have one. Brenna was glowing. That fake kind of glow that comes from being praised in public while lying through your teeth. She stood at the center of the small stage inside the community center, shaking hands and accepting a certificate for outstanding civic service. Dean clapped once. That was enough. He stayed in the back. Eyes scanning. Kellen was on the left aisle, recording with his phone like a proud son. No one noticed the glint of the tiny pin camera on his collar. Brenna took the mic. Service means sacrifice. My husband, Dean, taught me that, she said, voice sweet, practiced. Dean's teeth nearly cracked. He watched her bask in attention, her voice dripping with words she had not earned. Behind him, a woman in a gray coat stepped beside him. Mid-30s. Tough eyes. Soft hands. You are Dean Mercer? Who's asking? Clara Reyes. I worked the permit desk at City Infrastructure until last year. Dean turned slightly. Until I got let go. started asking too many questions about the Rayner contracts. Dean's eyes narrowed. You have proof? Clara nodded. Enough to burn them both. They shook hands. Silent pact. Brenna kept talking. Dean smiled. Every word she said was being fed to a drive that would ruin her life. Later that night, Brenna poured herself a glass of wine and leaned against the kitchen counter. You were quiet today, she said. Dean was seated at the table, scrolling through something on his phone. Just tired. You were not mad I forgot to mention the award thing? He looked up, slowly. You earned it. Brenna tilted her head, trying to read him. You mean that? Dean stood up, walked to her, took the glass from her hand, set it down, and kissed her forehead. Of course I do, he said softly. She smiled. He walked to the sink and washed the glass clean. She never noticed the subtle blinking light under the kitchen counter, the one that recorded her phone call with Miles from earlier that day. Miles, the city's giving you another payout. Just say it's for outreach. No one checks receipts. Dean dried his hands, then picked up his keys. Where are you going? Brenna asked. Just a drive. Needed some air. She nodded. Be safe. I always am. As the door shut behind him, the recorder under the counter blinked once. Then again. Another file. Another nail in the coffin. The garage looked the same as it always had, tools on the pegboard, grease stains on the floor, but something had changed. Dean was not working on engines anymore. He was building a war room. Kellen stepped in, holding 2 coffees. That woman, Clara? She sent an email. Dean took the coffee. What did it say? She attached the project maps, bids, and a timeline. Said the money was funneled through a grant review board using ghost signatures. Dean raised his brows. And that connects to Brenna? Kellen nodded. She is on the board. Has been since before you deployed. Dean stared at the blueprint spread across the table. She built this with Miles. While I was halfway around the world eating sand. Race arrived minutes later with a hard drive in hand. Got into the city archive servers, he said. Clara was right. For separate projects, funded, never finished. Miles's name is buried in subcontractor lists. Brenna signs off on 3. Dean pulled out a thumb drive from his desk drawer and inserted it into Race's laptop. What's that? Race asked. The voice message from Miles. About the money clearing. Race shook his head, impressed. You know, most men would have lost it by now. Dean's eyes stayed cold. That is the difference. I am not most men. Brenna's friends used to crowd the house on weekends. Wine, gossip, 2 loud laughs that echoed through the halls. Now, silence. Dean noticed it in small things. The phone rang less. Her smile was slower to form. She double-checked her locks at night. Everything okay? Dean asked one evening. Yeah, she said too quickly. Just tired. People treating you different lately? She shrugged. I do not know. It feels like something's off. Dean nodded, pretending concern. Might be the media stuff. You have been all over the city website lately. Could be burnout. She sipped her wine. Maybe. That same night, a voicemail landed on Dean's burner phone. Clara's voice. The review board's getting jumpy. One of the members called in sick after seeing the leak online. They think more is coming. Dean replayed it once. Then again. Let the words settle. He looked over at Brenna, smiling at a movie she was barely watching, clutching her wine glass like it was a lifeline. The circle was starting to crack. They could feel it, and they had no idea where it was coming from. Dean sat alone at a park bench just past dusk, a quiet corner by the Veterans Memorial. His breath fogged in the cooling air. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Mercer? Yes. My name is Allison Griggs. I am a reporter with the National Sentinel. We received a tip about your wife and a contracting ring tied to falsified military housing grants. Do you have a moment? Dean looked out over the empty park. I might. We were given an encrypted packet, documents, recordings. It links your name to a fraud list, but it also includes evidence you were not involved. If this goes public, you need to know first. Who sent it? The name was listed as A. Reyes, but it came from a drop server. Dean smiled, just slightly. Allison continued. We are going to publish. We are verifying all materials now, but if there is more context, We would want to hear it from you. Dean's voice was steady. When does the story go live? Monday morning. He ended the call without another word. 3 days. That is all the time they had left. He stood up, lit by the faint glow of a memorial flame. Time to finish the war he never asked for, but now owned completely. Dean did not speak much over the weekend. He went through the motions, cooked breakfast, folded laundry, took the trash out like any ordinary man. But behind the calm, his mind was racing. Every move mattered now. He was not just building a case anymore. He was setting a stage. Sunday night, he and Kellen sat on the back porch in silence. A single light buzzed overhead. In the distance, wind chimes clinked like soft warnings. You ready? Dean asked. Kellen nodded. The school project cover worked. I got access to her tablet for 2 hours while she thought I was formatting slides. You get anything? Kellen slid a flash drive across the table. Dean plugged it into his laptop. One folder. Inside, screenshots of encrypted emails. Receipts of community fund transfers. An unfiled loan application with Miles's fake construction company listed under a new alias. Dean leaned back, exhaled. She is using fake charities now. Kellen's voice was sharp. She even said to Miles in a draft message, the vet optics will shield us. They never dig deep. Dean closed the laptop. Slowly, carefully. She used my uniform for cover. My name. My brother's. Kellen looked him in the eye. Then let's make sure they all see what she is. Miles Rayner slammed his phone on the glass table hard enough to rattle the base. What the hell do you mean? Leaked data. His assistant on the other end stammered. It was posted on 3 veteran forums, and someone dropped files into a Reddit thread. It is spreading. I told you to lock the servers. They are not from our servers. They are from city storage. Old bit files. Public. Miles rubbed his temples. This is bad. He walked to the window of his loft apartment. From 20 stories up, the city looked calm. But in his gut, he felt the ice. He called Brenna. She picked up on the second ring. You seeing this crap online? He hissed. Yes, I saw it. I thought you said no one could trace the shell companies. They should not be able to. Someone is bleeding us from inside. Brenna's voice dropped to a whisper. You do not think it's him, do you? Miles paused. The silence was a knife. No, he said, but his tone betrayed doubt. You said he was broken. I thought he was. Brenna swallowed hard. Then who the hell is doing this? Miles stared out over the skyline. I do not know. But whoever it is, they know everything. Monday morning arrived wrapped in silence. Dean stood at the kitchen sink, the same way he had on hundreds of other mornings. But this time, the silence was not routine, it was loaded. Like the moment before a breach. Every breath measured. He poured coffee. Sat down. Kellen came in wearing a hoodie, earbuds in. Calm but focused. You good? Dean asked. Yeah. Been checking the forums. Someone mirrored the leak to 2 news subreddits. They are catching on. Dean nodded. The Sentinel? Nothing posted yet. Across the kitchen, Brenna walked in like it was any other day. Morning, she said, yawning. Sleep okay? Better than expected, Dean said, sipping his coffee. She kissed his cheek. I have meetings today. Might be home late. Take your time, he replied without blinking. She left 15 minutes later. Dean did not move until he heard the garage door close. Then he opened his laptop. The article was live. Exposed. Local veteran nonprofit tied to multi-million-dollar fraud scheme photos. Documents. Screenshots. Anonymous sources. Dean scrolled slowly, stopping at the quote from an insider source. They used patriotism as a shield and betrayal as a strategy. Kellen leaned over, staring at the headline. It is happening. Dean nodded. Yes. And this is only the beginning. Brenna sat in the conference room at CityWorks HQ, heart racing beneath her tailored blazer. 4 board members surrounded her, each with polite smiles, stiff backs, and phones placed face down. On the screen in front of them, the headline from the National Sentinel. She had not even finished reading the article before the first call came in. Then 3 emails. Then a calendar invite for this emergency review. The chairman cleared his throat. Brenna, as you know, The piece released this morning raises serious questions regarding the financial management of Operation Forward, which, another member interjected, lists you as co-director. I am not responsible for day-to-day operations, Brenna replied quickly. That is Miles Rayner's side of the house. I was simply an advocate. A face. Then how do you explain this? The woman beside him asked, tapping her tablet. Your signature on this wire request to Red Hawk Construction. That is your handwriting. Brenna's mouth went dry. I thought that was part of the materials delivery budget, she stammered. Another board member leaned in. You approved a $120,000 materials shipment. That project was never started. Brenna blinked. Hard. Then she smiled, but it faltered under their unmoving stares. I think I need to speak with legal counsel. The room went silent. This was no longer a conversation. This was a reckoning. Dean heard the knock before he saw the car. He opened the front door just enough to see Miles Rayner standing on the porch, sunglasses on, fists clenched at his sides. We need to talk, Miles said. Dean did not move. Now is not a good time. Miles stepped forward. Listen, man. I do not know what the hell is going on, but this article? It is dangerous. You have no idea the kind of crap this is kicking loose. Dean stared at him, dead silent. Miles pushed harder. If this is some kind of revenge thing between you and Brenna, back off. You are going to drag down people you do not even know. Dean opened the door wider. What did you say to me? Miles shifted. I said, whatever this is, just stop. People talk. There are real consequences. Dean stepped outside, chest inches from Miles's. Real consequences? You think I do not know what that means? Miles laughed once. Nervous. You need to chill. I chilled in Kandahar while you slept in my bed. Miles flinched. Dean leaned in. Do not ever come to this house again. He shut the door with finality. Miles stood there a second longer, then turned and walked to his car with shaky steps. Inside, Dean watched him leave. Kellen walked in from the hallway. He looked scared. Dean nodded. He should be. The next morning, Kellen burst into Dean's room, phone in hand. They froze the account. Dean sat up. Which one? The fake nonprofit. Operation Forward. There is a statement from the city. Pending a financial investigation, all activity has been suspended. They are turning on each other. Dean stood, pulled on a jacket. Where is Brenna? Still asleep. I checked her phone while she was out cold. She called Miles twice last night. No answer. Dean stared at the floor for a long moment, calculating. She knows it is slipping. Kellen hesitated. Do you want to tell her what is coming? Dean's face hardened. No. I want her to find out with the rest of the city. Outside, a car pulled into the driveway. Unmarked, tinted windows. Dean watched it through the blinds. Two men in dark suits stepped out with briefcases. Dean smiled to himself. It is starting. Kellen glanced at him. What is that supposed to mean? Dean turned from the window. It means karma does not knock. It kicks the goddamn door in. It was almost poetic how quiet the morning felt. Brenna sat at the kitchen island, scrolling her phone with a frown pinched between her brows. Her coffee sat untouched. Her eggs were cold. Her attention had turned to whispers on social media, rumors, reposted headlines, vague accusations. Dean moved through the kitchen like a man with nowhere to be. Calm, steady, silent. Have you seen this stuff going around? Brenna asked, not looking up. Dean poured himself coffee. About the city contracts? She nodded. It is getting traction. I called Miles last night. No answer. Again. Dean sipped slowly. You think it will go away? I do not know. Her voice was tight. They are dragging my name through all this like I ran the books. I barely touched that side of things. You signed off on a few things, right? She paused. Only what Miles said was fine. He handled the money. Dean turned to her. But your name is on it. She glanced up, eyes narrowing. What are you getting at? Dean smiled. Just asking questions. She pushed her phone aside and stood. I'm going to the office. I need to get ahead of this. Dean watched her gather her keys and purse with rushed, jittery movements. She paused at the door. You are acting weird, she said. Like you know something. Dean stepped closer. Kissed her cheek slowly. I know a lot of things. She left without another word. Dean watched her drive away, then pulled out his phone. The timer hit 0. Across the city, inboxes began receiving something new. A drop file marked Authenticated. Operation Forward Scandal, Master Evidence Folder. It was no longer rumor. It was truth, served cold and public. Dean sat in the back of a small courtroom. No cameras, no press, just hard benches and tired fluorescent lights. Across from him sat Clara Reyes, nerves steeled behind her determined eyes. "I cannot believe they fast-tracked the hearing," she whispered. "They are bleeding and trying to cauterize," Dean replied. The door opened and in walked someone that stopped time. Darcy Lowell. Not in cuffs. Not escorted. But alone. Dean leaned forward. "She came voluntarily?" he asked. Clara nodded. She flipped. Darcy sat before the judge and cleared her throat. "My name is Darcy Lowell. I was an internal auditor and city permit liaison. I have submitted sworn testimony and supporting documentation to the court this morning. The evidence confirms that Operation Forward was knowingly falsifying contract approvals with the intent to embezzle from veteran housing funds." Dean sat frozen. Darcy continued. "However, my statement includes evidence that implicates Miles Rayner and Brenna Mercer as the lead architects of the fraud scheme. And I have proof they tried to launder the funds through offshore digital wallets." The room buzzed. Clara leaned in. "She brought it all." Dean whispered, "Why now?" "She wants a deal." The judge called for a recess. Outside, Clara pulled Dean aside. "She just detonated a nuke." Dean looked down the hallway where Darcy stood surrounded by her lawyer and investigators. "You think they are watching now?" Clara nodded. "They are watching, and they are ready to move." Brenna's phone rang again. She let it buzz until voicemail picked up. She was sitting in her car, 2 blocks from City Hall, staring at a crowd of reporters flooding the steps. Flashbulbs popped. Questions were shouted into the air. She could not breathe. Her name had trended on Twitter all morning. The headline that ruined her read, "City Fraud Exposed, Mercer and Rayner at Center of Scam Photos." Screenshots. Audio. She thought about calling Dean, but stopped herself. No. He had been too calm, too collected, too quiet. He knew. Her hands gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She grabbed her phone and called Miles. Straight to voicemail. Again. She screamed into the silence of her car, pounded the dash with both fists, then broke into shaking sobs. Across town, Dean stood at a gas station, fueling up the truck. A nearby radio played the local news, a citywide investigation now underway. The 2 primary suspects named today. He smiled to himself. Then texted Kellen. Phase 2 complete. It's time. Miles Rayner sat at his desk, blinds drawn, phone silenced. He had not slept. The article had gone viral faster than he expected. Emails bounced. Phones rang off the hook. His name was now attached to phrases like stolen valor, misuse of military funds, and organized theft. A knock at the door made him flinch. He checked the peephole. 2 men. Dark suits. Badges out. Federal. He opened the door halfway. "Can I help you?" The taller agent lifted a small folder. "Mr. Rayner, we are with the Office of the Inspector General. We have a few questions about your involvement in the Operation Forward initiative." Now is not a good time. It is not a request." They stepped inside. Calm. Cold. Professional. 10 minutes later, Miles sat across from them, sweating through his shirt. "You were listed on 5 contracts. 2 of them approved during Dean Mercer's deployment, yet signed in his name. Do you know how that happened?" Miles shifted. "I handled a lot of the paperwork. It was a mistake, clerical, and the offshore wallet connected to a foundation in Panama. That is not mine. That is Brenna's territory." The agents paused. "Are you saying she orchestrated this?" Miles hesitated, then nodded. "If anyone talks first," one agent said, "they get the deal." Miles blinked. He had just sold out Brenna Mercer. Kellen sat in the school library, his laptop open, headphones in. But he was not watching a lecture or doing homework. He was uploading, 1 file at a time, each one labeled and sorted. messages between Brenna and Miles, emails with bank details, burner phone audio, and security cam clips from their own house. Everything. Amira, seated across from him, watched the progress bar climb. Are you sure about this? Kellen nodded. I want the city to know who she really is. Not just because she hurt my dad, but because she used people who needed help. Amira lowered her voice. This is going to explode, Kellen. You cannot take it back. I do not want to take it back. He clicked publish on the anonymous leak site. It went live within seconds. At the same time, he posted the link across multiple platforms using a fake account. For every vet who was promised help and left with lies, this is the truth. By the time he walked out of school, the link had over 20,000 shares. By dinner time, #MercerScam was trending nationally. Brenna pulled into the driveway as the sun dipped below the horizon. Her car radio was off. She had driven in silence, dreading what would be waiting for her. Dean was in the garage, wiping grease from his hands. Not on a car, on a locked metal case that had been tucked in the corner since before deployment. She stepped out of the car slowly. I need to talk to you, she said. Dean looked up. That is new. She frowned. Everything is falling apart. I know you saw the articles. I know you have been distant. I just need to know where you stand in all this. Dean tossed the rag aside and walked toward her. Stopped a few feet short. Where I stand? He asked. Yes. You are my husband. He shook his head once. You stopped being my wife the day you laughed in my bed with that man. You stopped being a person I protect the day you used my name to rob people who wore the same uniform I did. Brenna's face went pale. I did not plan it. Not like that, she whispered. But you let it happen, Dean said. And now you want clarity? She stepped back, breath shaking. What are you going to do? Dean looked past her, toward the street, where two more black vehicles had just turned the corner. Nothing. I already did it. Her phone buzzed. Grand jury summons, State of Colorado versus Brenna Mercer. She dropped it. And for the first time since this started, she looked genuinely afraid. Wait, can I share something personal with you? You've made it this far into the video, which tells me something powerful. You're actually enjoying this story. But here's what's crazy. Many of you watch, feel every twist, every emotion, but forget to hit subscribe. I've set a dream goal, 10,000 subscribers. It's bold. It's big. And you, yes, you watching right now can help make it happen. If you don't subscribe now, you might miss the next plot twist, the next betrayal, the next karma-filled revenge. So here it is. This is the moment. Tap subscribe. Turn on the bell. Be part of the journey. And when we hit 5,000 subscribers, I've got something special waiting just for you. Now, let's dive back into the story. Brenna sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone like it was a bomb waiting to detonate. Her hands trembled with every buzz. Missed calls, texts, mentions, notifications spiraling out of control. Outside, red and blue lights flashed through the curtains. It was not a raid, just the news van. They were camped outside now. Dean stood in the hallway, arms crossed. He said nothing, just watched her. You leaked it, didn't you? She asked, voice barely a whisper. Dean did not blink. What did you expect I would do? Say nothing? Protect you? Like I protected the country while you drained every drop of trust one had left. I was desperate. You thought I would be too loyal to fight back. Too broken. He stepped into the room. Not aggressive. Just present. Unshakable. Brenna, I survived war zones where kids held AKs and bombs were buried under gravel roads. You think I could not survive you? Tears filled her eyes. They are going to destroy me. Dean nodded. No, you destroyed yourself. I just turned on the light. Outside, a reporter's voice echoed faintly through a loudspeaker. And tonight, we await a statement from former nonprofit board member Brenna Mercer. Dean walked away without another word. She was already finished. The headlines were just writing the eulogy. Dean walked into the local VFW hall in boots that still carried desert dust and scars too deep for most to see. The place went quiet when he entered. Clara was already there. So was Race. A few older vets. Some younger ones he had never met. One stood up. You the guy who exposed the scam? Dean nodded. Another man, older, missing 3 fingers, stepped forward. I waited 7 months for that housing grant. My wife died before we ever moved in. Dean met his eyes. I am sorry. I did not know until it was too late. The man nodded. But you did something. You fought. A few heads nodded. Silent gratitude. The kind soldiers understand better than words. Dean stood at the front of the room. I did not come here for applause. I came because I want every one of you to know this was never about revenge. It was about making sure people who wear this country's flag on their chest do not get spit on when they come home. Clara handed out copies of the evidence folder. Race added, a group is already forming. Class action. Every vet who got denied or scammed by Operation Forward is in. Dean did not smile. But for the first time, he felt peace touch the edge of his chest. Miles Rayner paced the hallway of a motel 3 towns over, sweat staining the collar of his shirt. His bag was packed. Car outside, engine already warm. He had deleted emails, tossed burners, wired cash to his brother's account. But it was too late. The TV inside the room was playing the local news. An arrest warrant has been issued for Miles Rayner, accused of misappropriating federal funds and conspiring to defraud military families. His accomplice, Brenna Mercer, is scheduled to appear before a grand jury this week. The screen cut to security cam footage of Miles himself, smirking, holding a drink, talking about how easy it is to scam people who trust too much. He shut the TV off with a violent smash of the remote. Then, a knock at the door. One, then another. Then, federal agents. Step away from the door and place your hands where we can see them. Miles froze, heart pounding. His eyes darted to the bathroom. No window. Nowhere to go. He backed away from the door, raising his hand slowly. When they cuffed him, he did not scream. He did not fight. Because somewhere deep down, he knew he deserved every second of what was coming. The courthouse was colder than Dean expected. Not the temperature, the feeling. The air. The tension in the hallway as people whispered outside courtroom 3B. Reporters lined the far side. Cameras were banned inside, but that did not stop them from swarming every hallway. Dean walked through it all without a word. Inside, the room was quiet except for the shuffle of papers and the tapping of pens. The judge sat high, the jury impassive, the air thick with watchfulness. And then the door opened. Brenna stepped in wearing a slate gray suit. Not flashy. Not desperate. Just wrong. Too clean for someone whose name was all over forged documents and wired fraud. She did not look at Dean. She took her seat beside her lawyer. The prosecutor stood. Ms. Mercer, you are here today under federal suspicion of conspiracy to defraud, embezzlement, misuse of nonprofit funds, and falsification of government documents. Do you understand the charges? Her voice cracked slightly. Yes. Did you, at any point, knowingly approve financial transfers through Operation Forward that were used for purposes not declared in grant documentation? Brenna hesitated. Dean watched her closely. Not angry. Not bitter. Just still. Her lawyer whispered something. She answered, I approved what I was told was legitimate. The prosecutor nodded. Who told you? Silence. Then, Miles Rayner. Gasps filled the gallery. Dean did not blink. She had flipped. Not to admit guilt, to shift it. The prosecutor continued, unshaken. And did you personally profit from these approvals? Another long pause. Then, I received a bonus from Rayner Enterprises, yes. The courtroom moved like a slow wave, heads turning, whispers rising. Dean stayed still. Every lie was now carved in stone, on record, sworn, locked forever. And the best part? She buried herself trying to survive. Later that afternoon, Dean stood outside the courthouse, jacket unzipped, eyes fixed on the clouds shifting above. Kellen stood beside him, holding a sealed brown envelope. She really tried to throw him under the bus, huh? Kellen said. Dean nodded. She thinks it makes her the victim. You are going to give that to the prosecutor today? Dean looked at the envelope. Inside were 2 notarized affidavits, one from Clara Reyes, confirming direct meetings with both Miles and Brenna. One from a city clerk, whose recorded audio caught Brenna laughing about playing the system like Monopoly. Also inside, A flash drive. Password locked. Voice locks. Time-stamped. Dean took it from Kellen. This is the last move. They walked back inside. In the prosecutor's office, Dean slid the envelope across the desk without a word. The agent looked up. What is this? Dean stared back. Calm. The missing piece. He turned and walked out. No drama. No noise. Let the evidence speak louder than anything he could say. That night, the news played on every screen. The words, "Arrest warrant upgraded. Formal charges filed," sat across the bottom of the screen in red. Dean sat on the couch. Kellen on the floor. A quiet meal between them, forgotten halfway through. "Do you feel better?" Kellen asked. Dean thought for a moment. "Not yet. But you will." Dean looked at him, eyes soft for the first time in weeks. "Yeah, eventually." The anchors continued. With growing testimony and newly submitted evidence, legal experts say both Mercer and Rayner may face not only state penalties, but federal prosecution as well. Dean turned off the TV. He stood, walked to the front door, and stepped out into the night. No storm, no rain, just wind, that clean kind of wind that feels like something has shifted. He looked up at the stars. Inhaled. Exhaled. Inside, Kellen watched from the window. His father did not say anything dramatic. No movie line. No big speech. But in that quiet moment, the truth was obvious. Dean Mercer had done what soldiers are trained to do. In the fight. And now, finally, start to live. Brenna sat in a holding room, hands clasped tightly in her lap. The white walls around her felt too bright, like they had been lit on purpose to keep her from hiding in shadows. Her lawyer paced near the door, checking his watch every few minutes. "You understand the deal on the table," he said. She nodded. "You testify fully against Miles Rayner, hand over every document you still have access to, and in exchange, the federal charges may be reduced. The state charges will remain." Brenna looked up, her voice thin. "How long? If you cooperate fully? 5 to 7 years. If not, you are looking at more than a decade." She swallowed. Hard. No more pretending. No more headlines. No more husband to manipulate. No son to win back. Just 4 walls, cold light, and her own voice breaking in the silence. The lawyer stepped out. Brenna stared at her reflection in the window's glass. The woman looking back did not look like someone who made a mistake. She looked like someone who got caught after too many lies. No one was coming to save her, because she had made sure of that herself. Dean stood at the edge of the field behind his father's old cabin, sleeves rolled up, holding the last box of files. One by one, he fed them into the burned barrel. Not government evidence, that was already in safe hands. These were memories, deployment letters from Brenna, photos from fake family holidays, anniversary cards signed in the same hand that later forged his name on a wire transfer. The flames curled high. Kellen stood nearby, arms crossed. "You sure you want to burn it all?" Dean tossed in the final envelope. "Yeah, I do. What about closure?" Dean looked at the fire. "This is closure." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Kellen added, "You know, you could have destroyed her years ago. You had the evidence. You waited." Dean nodded. "Revenge done wrong just makes more pain. I needed to make sure what I did mattered." "You did." Dean smiled. "A real one this time. Then we are done." The fire hissed louder as if it knew it was the end. Later that night, Dean sat alone at the kitchen table, a glass of bourbon half full beside him. In front of him, a single sheet of paper. He wrote with slow, deliberate strokes. "To Miles Rayner, you looked me in the eye the first day I came home. And you smirked. I will remember that, not because it hurt, but because it told me exactly who you were. You underestimated the man who had nothing left to lose. I will not make that mistake again." He folded the letter, never sealed it, never addressed it. Then another, "To Brenna, you used everything sacred to me. Our vows, my uniform, my son. But you gave me something too, a reason to become sharper, quieter, stronger. I hope when you wake up in that cell, you realize it was not my rage that destroyed you. It was your own reflection." Dean set the letters on the table, lit a match, watched the flame kiss the edge and rise, slow and precise. He did not need them to read those words. He had already said everything he needed to by surviving. The auditorium was packed. Veterans, community members, journalists, families of the ones who had been promised housing and received nothing but silence. They were all there, not for a protest, not for justice, but for acknowledgement. Dean sat in the front row, dressed in a clean navy shirt, no medals, no uniform, just a man who had lived through war, and one more brutal than combat, betrayal at home. A woman stepped up to the mic. It was the mayor. We gather here not just to honor the veterans we failed, but to recognize the man who brought the truth forward, not with violence, not with hate, but with unbreakable resolve. Dean's name echoed through applause. He stood slowly as the mayor approached with a plaque and a small bronze medallion, not military issued, but civic. On it, a quote from a Marine letter: "Honor is not given. It is kept." Dean did not say a word. He just bowed his head once, then turned and walked down from the stage, every step solid, grounded. This was not revenge. This was justice, the kind that left nothing burning but the lies behind it. Race and Dean sat in the back of a government office surrounded by cold tech, monitors, servers, and hard drives that had once held every voice, every forged file, every stolen cent. An agent clicked through the final folder. "This is the last of it," she said. "We have confirmed prosecution against 4 city contractors, 1 board member, and both central figures. All admissible." Race leaned back. "And Dean," the agent turned to him, "you are clear. You were never under suspicion. In fact, you are named as a cooperating witness and primary source." Dean nodded. "Then I am done here." He stood, hand extended. The agent shook it firmly. "You were smarter than most men we deal with," she said. Dean shrugged. "I had more to lose." Race followed him outside. The sun was setting, orange on the edges, wind just cold enough to bite. "You gonna keep doing this?" Race asked. Dean smirked. "Nah, I am not a soldier anymore." "No." Race chuckled. "You just took down half a corruption ring." Dean's voice was soft. "That was not war. That was healing." The living room looked different now. The walls had been repainted. The furniture shifted. No more framed lies on the mantel. No more wedding photo. No trace of the life that had once betrayed Dean from the inside out. Kellen sat on the couch, laptop open. His new nonprofit website loaded. Dean stood behind him, watching. "You really did it," Dean said. Kellen nodded. "We did." The homepage read, "Vanguard Project, for every veteran they left behind," below it. Stories, faces, donation links, legal support info. "It is just a start," Kellen said. Dean smiled. "That is all anything ever is." They sat in silence a moment. Then Kellen asked, "Do you regret not destroying them sooner?" Dean shook his head. "No. If I had rushed it, it would have been about me. But this is bigger than revenge. This is restoration." Outside, a car passed. Inside, peace held. Dean looked at the wall where a new frame hung, not a medal, not a certificate. Just a photo of him and Kellen, smiling beside the truck they had rebuilt last summer. No caption. It did not need one. Because some things, the real things, speak for themselves. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was nothing grand. No press. No podiums. Just a group of veterans and volunteers standing outside a converted community center, newly renamed with a simple sign, the Vanguard Project. A safe start for returning soldiers. Kellen held the scissors but turned to Dean before cutting. "You should do it." Dean shook his head. "This was your idea. Your fight." Kellen's voice softened. "It was ours." Dean stepped forward, took the scissors, and cut the ribbon clean through. The small crowd clapped, not wild applause, just real, honest. Inside, the walls were lined with job support stations, PTSD resources, a food pantry in the back. A mural of service members from all branches stood tall on the far wall. At the center was one figure walking forward, head held high. Dean stared at it for a long moment. "It looks like you," Kellen said. Dean did not smile. He just placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "It looks like a second chance." The cabin in Colorado was not fancy. It had one bathroom, no internet, and the kind of silence most people found uncomfortable. But Dean found peace there. He fixed fences, cooked overwood, took long walks along the ridge at sunset. One evening, he sat by the fire, flipping through an old field notebook, pages half full of tactical notes, deployment times, and brief memories jotted during nights overseas. He found a note that simply said, "Come home, whole." Dean closed the book. He had not come home whole. He had come home to betrayal, loss, and a world that no longer made sense. But he rebuilt. He did not chase closure. He created it. And now, as the wind moved through the trees and the fire crackled low, he whispered the words out loud, not to anyone else, just to the night. "I made it." At a local high school assembly for Veterans Awareness Week, Kellen was the keynote speaker. He stood in front of a gym full of students and faculty, the words prepared but his voice steady with lived truth. "My father taught me a lot of things. How to change a tire, how to keep my hands steady, how to fight without throwing punches." A few kids chuckled. Most were silent. But the biggest thing he ever taught me was that you can be broken and still rebuild. He paused, looked out over the room. Some of you will face betrayal. Some of you will lose people you thought would never leave. Some of you will want revenge. He waited. Let the silence sit. But what matters more than how you break is how you come back. The applause did not erupt. It rose slowly, like respect being built one hand at a time. Dean stood at the back of the gym. No spotlight, no introduction, but every word had landed like a stone in water. The ripple had begun. Brenna stared at the concrete ceiling of her prison cell, fingers tapping against the thin mattress. The walls were the same shade of gray as her thoughts. She no longer checked the news. No one called. Letters stopped months ago. Miles had flipped, then disappeared into a prison system that would keep him for a long, quiet stretch. She had not heard from him since. She sometimes replayed Dean's voice in her head, not the angry version, not the day he walked out, but the moment before everything fell. "You stopped being someone I protect." Those words cut deeper than any sentence. There was no one left to blame, no plan to run, only memory, echoes of a life built on manipulation, and the haunting clarity of knowing she had used love like a weapon. Now, the silence answered her, and she had no more lines to speak. The sun cut through the trees like golden threads. Dean stood in the garage with the hood of the old Chevy truck propped open. His hands were smudged with oil. His shirt was soaked from the afternoon heat. Kellen tightened the last bolt and stepped back, wiping his hands with a rag. "It runs smoother than it ever did," he said. Dean leaned against the fender. "Yeah, took time. Patience. Little fixes that most people would never even notice." Kellen looked at him. "Like us." Dean smirked. "Exactly like us." They both stood in the quiet hum of the forest around them. No sirens, no shouting, no lies. Just father and son. Alive. Standing. Kellen pulled out 2 root beers from the cooler and handed one to Dean. They clinked bottles lightly. "You think she ever looks back?" Kellen asked. Dean did not flinch. "She looks back, but it is not the same as looking forward." Kellen nodded. "And you?" Dean stared out at the long dirt road, his voice steady. "I look forward now. I earned that." The truck engine purred to life behind them, old, reliable, redeemed. Everything that mattered had been broken once. But not everything that breaks has to stay that way. Dean stood at the annual Veterans Day gathering, dressed in simple jeans and a flannel. He was not there for a medal, not for recognition. He was there because he had finally come full circle. As the names of honored soldiers were read aloud, Dean stood beside a family who had once been scammed by Operation Forward. The mother squeezed his hand quietly, eyes misty. After the event, a reporter approached him. "You never gave a public statement." "Not really. If you could say one thing now, to everyone who followed this story, what would it be?" Dean looked straight into the camera. "I would say this: not all wounds bleed. Some betrayals cut deeper than bullets. But if you keep breathing, if you hold your ground, even the worst collapse can be rebuilt." He paused, then added quietly, "And sometimes the best revenge is not becoming like the people who tried to destroy you." The reporter blinked, caught off guard. Dean just nodded once and walked away, not to escape, but toward a life he had earned, not begged for. As he stepped into his truck and drove into the open Colorado horizon, a final thought lingered. Peace is not given. It is made by men who refuse to stay broken. Final message to my viewers. So tell me, if it was you, if someone stole your trust, your home, your peace, would you have waited in silence or planned in shadows? Let us know in the comments and tell us where you are watching from. We read every one. If this story held you, even for a moment, like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss what comes next. Because next time, we are coming back with another epic revenge story. Bolder, wilder, and even more unforgettable. Until then, take care of yourself, watch who you trust, and never forget, sometimes the quietest ones write the loudest endings. See you in the next one. Stay sharp